Dr. Mark DeBrincat, he is known as the Good News Doctor, is a natural health doctor specializing in holistic health solutions to optimize performance, health, and well-being. Having survived a near-fatal head-on collision that left him in a wheelchair and endured 7 back surgeries, Dr. Mark DeBrincat learned to overcome all odds and knows what it's possible when we provide the body with the tools it needs to heal itself. Dr. Mark DeBrincat, welcome to the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Can you kind of explain what glycocalyx is and what it does, the function of it in our body?
Sure. So our cell lining of our microvessels is only 1 cell layer thick. And so it always amazed me how the blood could stay in it if it's so fragile. I mean, we just touch our hair, we're killing layers of cells. So what protects those layers from just busting open with the slightest bit of pressure? And so what they had discovered back in the early 2000s is we actually produce a gel-like matrix that binds to the proteins of these amino sugar, these hairs that we're growing. These polysaccharide hairs are very fine hairs that form a barrier of hair. So think of like moss on a rock that the water just kind of pushes it all downstream. It wouldn't stand up straight. Well, we secrete a gel in there that has redox signaling molecules in it that bind to those hairs and form like a Teflon coating over the blood. So it allows everything in the blood to pass through. And when they touch the hairs and that gel, it releases its oxygen and nutrients. And that's the communicator that gets it through the epithelial cell into the tissue. And so the hair itself isn't enough. We need that gel matrix that we ooze out of the surface of that cell wall to bind to those hairs to form that barrier and that protective motion, gel matrix. And so we're producing this trillions of times a day through all of our vessels, through all of our life. And so that's just a fact. Now, the barrier that separates our brain from our body, that blood-brain barrier, that has a very thick glycocalyx on it. And the thickest one we have is in our gut barrier that is protecting all the stuff that we don't want in our gut from getting into our blood and such. So and then the fourth one is the lining of our eyeballs actually have another glycocalyx that are protecting the surface of our eyes. So it's basically our protective mechanism that not only seals and blacktops our driveways for us, but it's also the medium in which we get the nutrients to come through and actually be absorbed.
Okay, got it. So that's the glycocalyx. And because of lifestyle and various other factors, I assume there's some primary factors that have a negative effect on this glycocalyx of our body. Do you know, what are those factors actually?
So simple things just like aging will eventually do it. Stress is a huge one. Obviously pathogens and viruses such as COVID, they found wipes out glycocalyx very quickly. Smoking does it, and genetics. You know, if your body and the DNA believes that you're under attack, it's going to start waking up the genes of a bunch of warriors to come fight a battle that's not actually happening. You know, so genetics plays a big role in that as well too.
Got it. So those affect the glycocalyx, which in turn, when you damage the glycocalyx, what is the negative reaction, or what's the actual thing that happens? Is it prevent the oxygen exchange? Is that
it prevents the motion from happening, especially in the small vessels, and so we're not able to get moving through those, and so they get obstructed and then they get stagnant. And so if we don't have that glycocalyx, you're not going to have movement. You're also vulnerable for areas where plaque in our bigger vessels, that's where plaque is always going to build up in an area where the glycocalyx is damaged. It doesn't just, I always ask myself, how come plaque can just stick to an oiled up wall that has 2,000 gallons of blood going through it a day? How does that happen? And I used to believe it was the dairy. The enzymes from homogenizing and pasteurizing dairy scratches the walls because the cell's shape changes, and then we have to heal the scratches. But how does it scratch? Really, you have to have the coating that's not there to protect it. And so when we have that, and it can be poor diet, it could be chronic stress, it could be I'm around toxins all the time with my profession, like a painter or someone who works in a nail salon where there's just lots of fumes and things that are getting into your body. If we don't filter the things that we're exposed to, our body becomes the filter, and our blood's the main transporter of toxins and stuff to identify, to get them out, to put them somewhere, to wall them off, and to move them on their way. And so when we have damage in these vessels, we're leaking toxins into tissues that aren't good, and that builds up over time. We're also causing calcification in these vessels, and then they're not functioning right. So the most important aspect of that glycocalyx is for function of our vessels. It allows the vessels to stay functioning properly, and with proper function comes health.
Got it. So once these glycocalyxes are damaged and the cells can't really move through the microvesicles very well, there are supplements that stimulate the growth of this glycocalyx.
Yes, we have a nutraceutical called Endocalyx, and this is made up of 7 intrinsic ingredients and 3 basic compounds. So we have amino sugars, which are the precursor to grow the glycocalyx. And then we have the polysaccharides, which are the building blocks for the repair of that glycocalyx. And then there's antioxidants to protect the new fragile growth of that glycocalyx. And so that product has over 200 clinical studies that have been published for all different types of problems that led because of the damaged glycocalyx. And then we've also had that patented to do exactly that, to grow the glycocalyx back in 2018.
And that's through the supplements.
That's through the supplement, yes.
And what were the results from your studies?
So there's hundreds of studies, and they're all based on restoring and repairing that glycocalyx. And once that happens, we see the body able to overcome and repair most things that are compromised because of our vascular system.
And okay, so and usually how long do you take to actually get that process to occur?
So the average patient, we would test them every 2 months. And so depending on their overall health score and what the importance of that score is to them, as far as improving it, if we want to improve the scores quickly, we would take a double dose of this supplement. And then once we achieve the score you want to live, we would go back to a single dose for maintenance and to keep those vessels functioning optimally.
Why is the glycocalyx so important?
It's our largest organ in the body. And it's what's that?
I thought our skin was the largest organ.
No, surface area, no. Surface area, your skin's only about 12 square feet, and your glycocalyx is bigger than a football field.
Okay.
And so if you were to fillet it and open up every vessel, lining up our microvessels, we can wrap around the earth 2.5 times. We have 65,000 miles of these. And what they determined, so Dr. Hans Wenck is the scientist that studied the endothelial glycocalyx for 30 years. He developed the camera, and then he developed the software to determine damage of the glycocalyx leading to diabetes, leading to kidney failure, leading to heart disease, leading to every different disease. They would study the glycocalyx in relationship to the damage and then eventually the cause of death. And so they have over 2,000 published studies on glycocalyx damage leading to certain diseases. And then they patented it back in 2009 for being able to determine with the software all the things I mentioned earlier on blood volume, perfusing, reserve capacity, but most importantly, the thickness of that glycocalyx. So then they found a nutraceutical that was 7 intrinsic ingredients that were found in the blue zones in the world where people live to be over 100. And those work synergistically with these, seaweed being one of those. And what they were able to study with the camera, that this formula literally grows that glycocalyx back, and they can see new growth happening within 24 hours. So then they did over 200 clinical studies showing improving glycocalyx leads to restoration of all these diseases. And they've studied it with COVID and kidney failure and heart disease and diabetes and strokes and what have you, as well as cognitive and mental disorders and depression and anxiety and so forth. And then they've proven that repairing the glycocalyx assists our body and then being able to deliver the nutrients and the oxygen and actually restore the dysfunctional areas of our tissues and of course our brain with improved vascularity. So we can improve the blood flow at the end of the tunnels where it gets to the smaller than the red blood cell size. That's where the exchange takes place. Most of that exchange, the oxygen delivery of the nutrients and then the waste removal. And so they have PEMF devices which improve microcirculation on a bunch of different levels. But what they found with the research with this camera is that the PEMF device wiggles the hair of the glycocalyx, causing the nitric oxide to be released. If you have damaged microvessels with no hair, that's where the stuff in the blood attacks the wall, scars it, or causes it to leak, or causes proteins to start sticking to it for plaque to build and repair. And that's where all of the malfunction in our vascular system happens, wherever that barrier is damaged. And so the PEMF devices themselves don't cause more blood flow in the areas that aren't moving because there's no glycocalyx. We need to restore the hair, to wiggle the hair to get the motion back. And so together they work much better, obviously, but now we have a supplement that can have more impact than using a PEMF device, because it is helping all the vessels repair in the areas that are damaged, which is going to improve more blood flow, stop leaking, and obviously help nutrients and everything else that you're doing be received or get through the barriers easier when they function better.
Hi, thanks for watching. Did you know that as we get older, we start to suffer from joint and spine pain and degeneration, chronic disease, and even accelerated aging, all caused by hidden weaknesses in our health? You see, daily metabolism leads to minor damage, and when that damage isn't repaired, then it accumulates until it reaches a threshold, and a health problem is created. Now, what if you could prevent these health problems from occurring in the first place? Now, science may have finally found a way to stop this process through cellular preventative maintenance. Regenerative nanoparticles are a revolutionary solution that can find and repair hidden damage before it becomes a condition. Discover how regenerative nanoparticles can add 30 or more healthy years to your life. Simply go to drrosscarter.com and set up a time to chat and learn more. That's drrosscarter.com. Now, we're located here in South Florida, but these procedures are available in all parts of the country. Please note that these procedures are not covered by insurances and prices start at $2,500. Go to drrosscarter.com and I will talk to you soon. Take care. And you have a device that actually measures this glycocalyx, so you can see where it stands currently and then retest it, right?
Correct. It's called the
Glycocheck
device.
A Glycocheck device. Okay. And it goes, how does it work exactly?
So it's a camera not much bigger than a pen, okay, that hooks directly to the computer and the software. And it's placed underneath the patient's tongue while they sit there with their elbows on the table in front of them. Okay. And it only takes between 5 and 10 minutes for it to record over 100,000 video segments. So it's recording a 6-second video segment, and then it'll isolate just the 4-micron diameter vessels into its own video, just the 5, just the 6, all the way up to 25 And then it does over 100 million calculations on that video to determine the health of the wall, how thick is that glycocalyx for that size vessel, how many red blood cells are actually going through it, how many do you have on reserve close by, if you did need to put a load on your body to be able to recruit more blood on demand, how well is that being absorbed and nutrients actually functioning through those vessels, and more, how much density is in there and so forth. So it's a very amazing report that you get on the overall function of your microvascular system, which is a systemic score. So that means it's happening everywhere. In the process of evaluating and validating this camera, they had people doing open brain surgery where they put the camera right into the brain. At the same time, they would do another score under the tongue and see the correlation. And whether it was in the kidneys, the liver, the heart, any organ, any muscle, any tissue that they were compromised on, that same score reflected in the systemic score from underneath your tongue. So it is the most vascular area, which makes it very easy for us to get a very good bird's eye view. So think of a camera with a fisheye lens on it that has a flashing light, so it can actually penetrate a different depth that I want to go, and then I can zoom in and actually get a focused image of that actual blood flow on all those size vessels.
It's primarily for just vascular evaluation to determine if you have clogging of the arteries kind of concept?
Not so much clogging of the arteries, but function of the capillaries. So it can even record the lining of the capillary wall where you have a glycocalyx
Oh, that's
epithelium.
right. I remember. It's like,
and then that releases nitric oxide, which causes vasodilation, which causes vasomotion. And so our patented nutraceutical will grow the glycocalyx back in all of the damaged areas. And that's the beautiful thing for regenerative health.
For providers who are listening to this, is this a device that they can utilize in their practice?
Yes. And so currently it's only in medical research hospitals around the world. I'm the first practitioner to have it in his practice for private use, but it will be released this fall for practitioners in the United States and Canada. And then shortly after there, will be expanding into many other countries as well. So they've taken a very expensive device and they've made it very inexpensive for the practitioners to be able to come into this space and be able to help patients in this way, with an attempt to truly just help more people find their way back to optimal health and find their way to avoiding a lot of these unnecessary cardiovascular events that people suffer from daily. And so there are companies that wanted to shelf this technology and buy it and then not let you ever see it because they don't want you to know how to reverse these problems before they happen. And so it's just another one of those feathers in our bow, like brain mapping, body mapping, x-rays, different things we do as chiropractors to get the big picture of how well are things functioning, right? We look at structure function first and then allow the body to do the amazing things that it does to help us heal. And so this is a great tool for all different types of practitioners. And it's not just limited to any one specific type. They're looking for healthcare facilities, people that have a brick and mortar business where you actually are serving and helping people with their health. They would like you to be able to participate in this platform.
When patients start taking these supplements, do they actually notice any change, or is it kind of there's nothing that really they notice?
No, I mean, I was wondering the same thing before I started putting the patients on the product. Is this something we're going to see change with right away, or is this something that only the people that are at the most critical stage are going to see the change right away? And I do have to say that most people, whether you're super healthy, an elite athlete, or in the ICU, within 24 to 48 hours, they're noticing a little bit better energy, a little bit better clarity in their brain, especially within the first 2 weeks. Out of all the medications that people take, we're noticing that people are able to reduce, with the help of their physician, blood pressure medication first. And usually within a couple of weeks, they start to see a change in that. And so I've had several patients of mine report that they haven't needed X, Y, and Z medications that they're using to manage things relating to blood issues based on their doctor. So it's not us ever telling people to not take their medication, of course. But as you know, if you're on a blood pressure to lower your blood, if you're on a medication to lower your blood pressure, and then all of a sudden your blood pressure is in normal range and you're lowering it further than normal, hey, it's time to titrate those doses. So talk to your doctor right away. And so I think the two number one things is, or the three number one things I would say, is just feel definitely more pep in their step and more energy throughout the day, clarity of their mind, memory, and just being able to see things and retain things much faster, and then sleep. People are finding they're not having to get up as often to go to the bathroom and such. And so again, in the 4, 5, and 6, if you had the scan done and saw that those vessels were very compromised in you, the first things that give out in the body is kidneys and heart, because those are really dense tissues that need the 4, 5, and 6 to feed the muscle. And so you starve the organ is what you're doing over time. And so we start to see kidney failure. We start to see different types of heart failure and heart malfunction. And so outside of just the blood flow itself, the glycocalyx obviously helps absorb all the nutrients and everything else, but blood flow is super important to make sure your organs aren't starving. So first happens in the microvessels, we damage the glycocalyx, then the microvessel stops functioning. And if it's not functioning right, it's going to eventually lead to starvation of wherever that vessel was trying to feed, right? And then premature complications to organ failure of such.
Hi, thanks for watching. Did you know that as we get older, we start to suffer from joint and spine pain and degeneration, chronic disease, and even accelerated aging, all caused by hidden weaknesses in our health? You see, daily metabolism leads to minor damage, and when that damage isn't repaired, then it accumulates until it reaches a threshold, and a health problem is created. Now, what if you could prevent these health problems from occurring in the first place? Now, science may have finally found a way to stop this process through cellular preventative maintenance. Regenerative nanoparticles are a revolutionary solution that can find and repair hidden damage before it becomes a condition. Discover how regenerative nanoparticles can add 30 or more healthy years to your life. Simply go to drrosscarter.com and set up a time to chat and learn more. That's drrosscarter.com. Now, we're located here in South Florida, but these procedures are available in all parts of the country. Please note that these procedures are not covered by insurances and prices start at $2,500. Go to drrosscarter.com and I will talk to you soon. Take care. Understood.
And I'd like to touch on that too.
Go ahead.
I'd like to touch on that too. Like, me, I've been working with Dr. Mark for a month now, and I'm getting testimonials almost daily. I have numerous people where their blood pressure, because people up in Minnesota don't have the ability to drive to Colorado. So I'm getting people tracking their blood pressure that have high blood pressure, and it's going down. Some of these are 20 points in 2 weeks. Sleep for me, I have an Aura ring. So my deep sleep has always been single digits. That's kind of what I struggle with. Last night, my deep sleep was 25%. My REM sleep, which is fairly as good, was 24. I've actually had nights where my deep sleep is more than my REM sleep. It's crazy how my deep sleep's double digits almost every night now. So like, that's what I've noticed. As I wake up, I feel like I've slept for 10 hours.
Yeah, my deep sleep went from 40 minutes unchanged to an hour and a half every night, and then about an hour and 20 minutes of REM. So, and I don't wake up 4 or 5 times a night either. And then another personal testimony for myself is I had a heart attack 3 years ago, had to have a stent put in, and I had another vessel that was 40% blocked at the time. They said they were going to keep an eye on it, didn't want to stent it right away. And this is 3 years out. I was on this double dose of this product for 2 months and then did my yearly checkup, and I had no blockage at all. So I hadn't been able to reverse it prior to now, but I stopped it from getting worse just by changing my diet and becoming a vegan and dairy free and all of that. It certainly stopped it in its tracks, but I was, it might have reversed itself in a few more years of this lifestyle, but it took 2 months with double dosing it, which was really shocking to me, but super exciting. Now, I did not have my vascular camera when I started taking the product. So I don't even know what my first score was, but I know my second score, which was a little bit above average, which is great. And now I'm not going to stop the double dose until I hit, between 9 and 10.
All
Right.
right, cool. I think we got everything.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
It was a pleasure speaking with you today.